So I mentioned that I'd talk more about the ship trial, and there are three aspects that we took away from the ship trial that I'd really like to share with you today. The first one is the compatibility with the ship. The second one is going to be the performance of the air vehicle, and we'll talk a little bit about the handling qualities. And then the third one is going to be the training burden. In fact, in the first video that Alan showed, one of the F-35C pilots was talking about the benefits of doing some advanced control or development in the F-35C and what that brings to that community with respect to flying back to the boat. Well, we have similar stuff in the B, which is going to help us a lot. So the first topic then, the compatibility with the ship. There were quite considerable concerns before we headed out to the ship that we might blow people overboard, we might be too loud, we might damage the surface of the ship. So we instrumented the ship pretty heavily. We put acoustic measurement devices on there, thermal, outwash measurement devices on there. And I've got to tell you, there really wasn't a lot in the way of badness. In fact, the crew, the deck crew, preferred operating with the F-35 than they had with the Legacy with the Harrier. It seemed to them to be more predictable. They were able to hang on to the deck while the airplane got airborne, and it didn't do, the outwash was not more significant than we've seen in Legacy. And so we ended up operating with broadly similar procedures that were used on the Legacy aeroplane with the Harrier. So huge success story in terms of the compatibility with the ship. There was no damage done to the deck. The second subject is the air vehicle performance. So we had two airplanes out there. We were able to compare them back to back. And we found when we started out, we were heart of the envelope, looking at about 15 knots of headwind and minimal crosswind for the takeoffs and for the landings as well. And we quickly progressed so that we were looking at 30 knots of headwind, and then we went to tailwind conditions, and we also went to crosswinds up to 10 knots from both sides, which is actually outside the existing clearance for the in-service airplane, the Harrier. So within a period of about 3 weeks, we got to a greater envelope than the Harrier has in service today, which is a phenomenal achievement. We found we were moving faster than we had expected we could. Of course, we did a lot of training before we went. We went to the simulator, we looked at all our models. We hadn't predicted there being any difficulties, but it's so nice when you go to the ship and you find that your expectations are met and the performance at sea was what we'd seen in our models, in our simulators before we went. The third aspect that I wanted to talk about was the training burden. We actually took 4 pilots with us to sea. There were 3 Marines, and I was the lucky contractor that went along. 3 of us, including me, had got Legacy experience on the Harrier flying to flight decks. The other guy, he was a Marine, was an F-18 Hornet pilot who'd barely been to sea before, even with the F-18. He'd had about 20 vertical landings before we went to sea. And we took him out there, gave him plenty of training before we went, and we took him out there and he quickly adapted to all the sea procedures. He flew the airplane like a champion. He found it just the same as the rest of us did, low workload, easy to do, and within about 3 or 4 of his landings, you couldn't tell his landings apart from those of us that are more experienced. And I thought that was a phenomenal underlining of the success of the airplane. So what for the future? The UK, with its Queen Elizabeth class carriers, are coming along. They're in build now in the UK. Bring a couple of changes, a couple of things that are different, of course, in the USS WASP class of carrier, particularly the ski jump for takeoff, and also the possibility of a shipborne rolling vertical landing for getting the airplane back and carrying potentially some greater weapon load than you can bring to the hover, or potentially some more fuel than you can bring to the hover. So a couple of tweaks there to the sort of USS WASP class of operations that the UK may choose to take advantage of. Certainly the ski jump launch, everything we've seen in the modeling tells us that that's going to be the easiest way to get the airplane airborne. We haven't done it yet. We're about to get underway with a test planning to do that at Pax River, where we have a ski jump already in place. So you can look out for that in the headlines in the coming year or so. And then for the landing, the shipborne rolling vertical landing, we as industry pilots are very involved now with the UK government, trying to advise them to refine the procedure, the maneuver, and what we hope to do is modify the ship and get it tweaked so the design supports the SRVL, the shipborne rolling vertical landing. There's a unique opportunity here for the UK, actually, in that the ship is being designed with a particular type of airplane in mind, with the F-35, or types of airplane in mind. And so bringing those two the airplane and the ship together should be a match made in heaven, honestly. It should be a really, really good solution. And with everything I know about the F-35 and having taken it to sea, I'm completely confident that the F-35 will be a fantastic solution for the UK.